In this chapter, I want to talk about collaborating with GitHub. GitHub has some amazingly powerful collaboration tools, and you can use them in a variety of interesting ways and workflows. Now, this chapter is going to be a little bit different than some of the other ones because I'm going to be getting my good buddy and producer, Dan Weston, to help me out. He's going to be collaborating with me. And if you're working by yourself, it's going to be very hard for you probably to replicate some of these exercises. So in those instances, you might want to get a friend or a colleague to help you out with these, or you can just simply create multiple GitHub accounts. I know I certainly have. The problem comes when you're working on the same repository locally with two different accounts. That can get pretty tricky. So some of these exercises you might just want to watch and get a good feel for how it works. And then you could bring those types of collaboration workflows to your team a little bit later on. All right, so the first thing I want to show you guys how to do is how to add a collaborator. Now, I want to talk very briefly about working with other people's repositories inside of GitHub. Any repository that's a public repository can be copied by anyone. And that's a process called forking. You can actually see on their homepage, this is one of the very first things that they talk about, is forking a repository. So if you go to a public repository, even if you're not listed as a collaborator, you can fork that repo and then make your changes, upload it, and submit what's known as a pull request, which we'll do a little bit later on in this chapter. You can submit a pull request that says, hey, I've made these changes to your repo. I really think they'd make the project better. Do you want to add them? And then you, as the owner of the repo, can either choose to ignore or accept those pull requests and merge those changes in or toss them away. And some teams do work that way, but it's a little bit nicer if the team members have read and write access to the repo. To do that, you're going to add them as a collaborator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to our GitHub for Web Designers repo that we created in the last chapter, and I'm going to go to my settings. So if you just click on settings for any repo that you own, you can set up a collaborator for this. Now, the person that is going to work with you or persons as a collaborator must have a GitHub account in order for you to choose them. So you can't send an invitation to them. That's really not how this works. Just have them go ahead and sign up for GitHub if they don't already have an account. And then you just need to know their username. So for Dan's, I know his username is D.A. Weston. Now, something that's almost terrifying to me is you get this autocomplete where it's like, are we talking about this guy or this random guy? Be very careful when you choose that username because a lot of account names look the same. Be really careful about that so that you don't give read and write access to somebody who you have no idea who they are. All right, so once I've selected Dan's name, I'm going to add him as a collaborator. And now he has full access to the repository, full read and write access. Now, you might be wondering, wow, is there a way to add a collaborator without giving them full read and write access? Well, yes. You can set up what's known as an organization. And when you set up an organization, you can have a manager within the organization, and then all the collaborators inside of that, you can assign them specific read and write privileges. So if you need that type of workflow, you might want to take a look at setting up an organization. Now, in the workflow that we're doing here, which is there's only two collaborators, me and Dan, and we both have full access to this repo, it's really important that we communicate very well with each other, because if we don't, we're going to end up doing work twice, overwriting changes that the other one has done. Even though Git does a nice job of tracking changes and keeping things from getting permanently deleted, you can really step on each other's toes if you're not careful. So in the next exercise, we're going to start working as a team by adding some comments to recent commits.